Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 207 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary. I got my partner Byron here, and today we have an awesome show with Crystal Demopoulos. How you doing today, Byron?
Gary, doing great. Excited to bring the episode to everybody. Crystal has won a couple of world championships at the lower belt levels. You know, she's also won Pan Americans, some pro trials and national tournaments, and she's doing MMA and really wanting to pick that up as well. So a lot going on, a lot of different topics to talk about during the interview, but we have an action-packed show. We even have another article of the week with the author Joe Thomas, and those are getting really well received by the audience. They're liking having the people who write the articles come on and talk with us, and it just adds another dimension to the show, another viewpoint. And it's been a lot of fun doing that. So that is, again, this episode, my friends.
Yep, I've noticed that since we've had Joe on, we have had a lot of positive reviews, and we just got one here the other day. I'd like to read.
Okay, Gary.
Dear BJJ Brick, we really love having Joe on. Joe is awesome. He is probably the best thing about the show by far. We really love Joe and wish Joe could come on more often. Thank you, Joe's mom.
Wow.
So, great one there. We appreciated Miss Thomas for writing that in, and we do agree with you. We think Joe is awesome, too.
Yep, best part of the show. He definitely is a member of the team. And, saying that, he's also a part of our social media page on Facebook. And the couple of posts he has done have been really well. He posts some interesting things on there. So definitely welcome him aboard the BJJ Brick House.
The Brick House. I like that one. The BJJ Brick House.
There we go. Gary, I wanted to share a little story with everybody this week.
So you're basically trying to tell me you're going to put me to sleep?
Yeah. As life happens, we're always thinking about jiu-jitsu, and sometimes you kind of think about something that's not mat-related and think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I recently went to a restaurant. It was a Moroccan restaurant, and I don't know if all Moroccan restaurants have similar qualities or not. My wife said, hey, let's go to this Moroccan place. It's really good.
Is this in Wichita?
Yeah,
what was the name of it?
I think Marrakech Cafe, 21st and Woodlawn area.
Okay.
And in case you're one of the handful of listeners that live in Wichita, she kind of prepped me on what to expect. She said, okay, it's going to be a little different. They're going to serve us water. It'll have no ice. It'll be straight up room temperature water. And then she kind of described some of the dishes and some of the spices that they'll use. And yeah, those are different than I'm used to. But I'm up for trying new things. So we got there, and it was a really nice experience. I enjoyed the restaurant. But I think she did a great service to the restaurant by telling me in advance, hey, they're going to serve you warm water, or at least room temperature water, which seems warm when you're just used to drinking ice cold water, and really helped me understand what I was ordering on the menu and kind of just what I'm getting into before I even get there. And I was thinking about that and how it made the experience so much better because I wasn't shocked by the water or the spices or the different items on the menu. And if you're bringing somebody into jiu-jitsu for the first time, whether it be a friend from another gym or somebody their first time on the mat, if you could do that, if you could just kind of prep them and say, here's what you're going to expect. We're gonna all line up in a big line and bow, or we're all going to just casually stretch and get warmed up individually. Whatever you do, if you could just prep them and tell them what to expect, it'll make the whole experience better. Because there's less of nervousness, less tension, and they just know what's coming down their way. Gary, what do you think about that?
Well, I think your wife does a little bit better explaining than I do. And the reason I say that is one of the guys that I train with, and you know him very well, Mike Canfield there, he, when I was trying to get him to train, and he's a big-time weightlifter, that's his thing to do. It kind of looks like a Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. But and it's true. But So when I was trying to get him to start, I was telling him about jiu-jitsu and trying to see if I could get him to go. And a lot of times I used to warm up with some CrossFit exercises type. And, I'd throw that in there too to try to get him interested. So finally he shows up one day and he comes to the gym, and the gym is just one big wrestling mat, the size of a basketball court. And, he's looking around real strange. And, I met him out in the parking lot, brought him in. He's looking real strange. And, he never really said anything, and we get out on the mat and we go at it and, teach him a little bit and introduce him around, and, he had a good day. And I see him at work next week, and I was like, hey, how'd you like it? He's like, man, it was really fun. I really liked it. He's like, it was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the way you were talking about it, I thought we were just going to do a CrossFit. I thought we were going to, get sledgehammers out and hit tires and flip logs and, flip tires, and, do some pull-ups and rope climbs. And he's like, I had no clue we were doing any type of wrestling, or, I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. So, I guess I didn't prepare him very well. I'm glad he stuck with it, because I do think, like what Byron says, the more you prepare somebody, the better experience they're going to have.
Yeah, and obviously, it's going to be different based on everybody's perspective. And you did good enough for Mike to enjoy it, and Mike still trains all the time. But if you had 10 mics, less of them would, when you shock somebody with what you're doing, you think you get less retention in the long run. But, glad to have Mike aboard and have him as a training partner as well.
Well, Byron, what did you order at Maracha Cafe?
I don't remember. It was some kind of a chicken
okay,
with room temperature water. But it was good. But just setting the expectations, I think that's the way it is. And you could take that, back off the mat, anything in life. If you help manage people's expectations, typically their transitions are easier.
What would happen if you asked for ice? Would you get it?
I don't think they have ice. I don't think they have an ice machine. I don't think that is. Yeah, I think that's part of the thing. I don't know. Maybe we have some people listening from Morocco, and they let me know. I'm sure the whole country has the ice somewhere, but maybe it's just a thing that ice isn't really used in drinks. And I don't know. Maybe it's just this one restaurant. It didn't really matter. That's the experience that I had. But just being prepped for it really helped a lot. And I think that that's also part of the idea of your first year in BJJ, is we're going to help prep you for getting through your first year. It is an audiobook. It's $11.99. The money helps go and support this very show you're listening to now. And it's really just me walking you through, helping you learn what to expect during your first year of grappling, and take away some of those surprises and definitely knock down a few of them hurdles for you. I guess you're supposed to jump over hurdles, and knocking them down are bad. But if I'm knocking them down for you, maybe that's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, you have the first guy knock him down, and you come in behind it. Yeah.
Let me do that. Let Gary and I learn from our mistakes. Let us knock down those hurdles for you.
Speaking of your first year in jiu-jitsu, we have an awesome quote that kind of reminds me of your first time in jiu-jitsu, starting jiu-jitsu. Byron, who is this quote by?
It is by Lao Tzu.
I'm glad, because I can't say his name, Lao Tzu. But the quote is, do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. And, I love that. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. And that's kind of reminds me of, when you start jiu-jitsu. And, I was talking to somebody today about, the journey of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I think you're always learning. I don't think that we can stop learning. And, but it all started that first day you stepped on the mat. It's not easy, and hopefully you had somebody to prep you, as Byron was talking about earlier, to kind of let you know, which, might make that first step. Everybody must take that first step. But even if you weren't prepped for it, and knew what to expect, you may have came in, did that first step, and just kept going. And that's, heart right there. You just kept going to something you like. But, it all starts from that very first day we step on the mat. We're going to go through struggles. We're going to have hard times. We're going to have easy times. We're going to have days where we feel great. We're going to have injuries. But man, that journey, 1,000 miles, it's like walking across Mongolia. It's how vast your jiu-jitsu journey will be.
Yeah, and when you get there, the water might be warm, but you'll be so thirsty it doesn't matter.
But I do want to know why the water's warm. I don't mind it at room temperature, but I don't want that water to be 98.6 degrees.
And a tint of yellow.
Yeah. Yep. And a funny smell.
The quote, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That's the one I hear, all the time. It's the first part of it that I didn't recognize as much is do the difficult things while they're easy. Do the great things while they are small. It's saying the same thing. But if you're on a weight loss program and you're looking at losing 50 pounds, 100 pounds, just worry about eating right today, exercising, doing your routine today. Don't worry about looking at a thing, I got to lose 100 pounds. Like that, that's not something that can be tackled very easily. Just do today's thing today, and tomorrow, do what you need to do tomorrow. And don't really worry about the big picture because, like I said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. If you look at 1,000 miles away, if you could do that, it's just too far to comprehend how much work you're going to have to do. The time will pass regardless, whether you're going to get good at jiu-jitsu in that time or you're going to lose some weight in that time. That's the issue, and it's just a day-by-day thing. And I think, like I say all the time, we're fortunate we enjoy this. This is fun, so it makes it a lot more easy to come back and do it again and again because it's an enjoyable process. It's like if you're new, you want a blue belt? No, just work out, working on that certain technique that we're working on today in class. Don't worry about the blue belt. It's a ways away. Do what's on your plate today. If you're teaching arm bars, teaching shrimps, whatever, that's what you need to work on.
So if we're talking about the 1,000 miles, so 250 miles would be a blue belt, 500 would be a purple belt, 750 would be a brown belt, and 1,000 would be the black belt, Byron?
Yeah, I don't know, but it sounds like it by your math.
Yeah. So
they're not even. I think they're not really spaced out quite evenly like that. But I think everybody's journey is unique, and everyone's is different. But,
yeah, definitely. Everybody has a unique journey, and just enjoy the ride. Just take stuff as they come. There's going to be bumps in the road. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have days where we just think we're incredible, and the really tough parts are when you do have those downturns. You are going to have times where you feel like you're not improving, where you feel like your game's going down, you're getting hurt, you're not having a lot of time, you're not having a lot of fun. But plodding through those, finding a way to get through that, just makes it that much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. And today is a enjoyable day because we have Crystal Demopoulos onto this show.
Let's get on to the interview with Crystal.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
I recently appeared on Wheel of Fortune. I found 1 B and 2 J's. After that, I stripped down to my underwear and challenged Pat Sajak to a sumo wrestling match on the wheel. In a strange series of events, Pat Sajak declined the initial challenge and the game continued. Pat then waited for me to take a pee. That is when Pat pushed me down, thus winning his controversial sumo match.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Crystal Demopoulos to the BJJ Break podcast. Crystal, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. I've noticed you're popping up in bigger and bigger grappling tournaments, and I sent you a message and happy to have you on the show. And it looks like you're also doing quite a bit of MMA. But all that stuff kind of aside, just give us a little introduction. Who is Crystal Demopoulos?
Oh, man. My name is Crystal Venessa, Lil Monster Demopoulos, and it gets kind of confusing as life goes on because sometimes they'll call me Crystal on social media, and then I pop up as Vanessa on the fight circuit. So it gets a little crazy, but I'm from Columbus, Ohio, originally from Cleveland. I drive 2 hours south every day for training to get it in with Vitor Oliveira and Ronin Training Center down there, and just been a huge passion of mine for the last 6 years. I actually got into fighting via pole dancing. I was very aggressive in my style, and someone was like, if you started fighting, you'd be more socially acceptable. And although I never really wanted to get punched in the face too much, I started off as a Thai boxer and did that for several years, strictly Thai boxing, and then helped to run an MMA gym. And people were like, MMA is where it's at. Like, that's what you got to do. And I'm like, yeah, like, that's cool. Like, I'll jump in the cage, but I'm just going to like punch people in the face. Like, I don't want to do any of that jujitsu stuff. So I started kind of just training a little bit, but not taking jujitsu seriously at all. In fact, I disliked it very much so for a super long time, probably the first 6 months. I'm sure a lot of girls can relate, especially if you're smaller, you're a chick, it's a man's world. Back when I first started, there weren't any girls at all. So I'm pretty much just getting owned by a bunch of heavyweight professional fighters. And it was really, really rough for me. So, making that transition into MMA is really what opened up the door to jiu-jitsu.
What's the story behind your nickname Little Monster or Lil Monster?
Oh, Little Monster. When we started doing a lot of workouts, I wasn't one of those people who dipped my toe to see if I liked it or not. Like, I went in one day, I almost passed out like 4 times, and I said, yeah, this is the sport for me. So I started going 100% every single day. I wanted to give it my all. I was training 3 to 4 times a day for Thai boxing, and I had a really vocal coach who would yell at us throughout the entire circuit drills that we would do, and for like a half an hour. And one of his biggest sayings was, "We build machines and we create monsters." And I was just out working everybody. Like, mind you, I can't be as strong as everyone. I was 115 pounds, but I could definitely outwork anybody in the room. So everyone's like, man, she's such a monster. So they started calling me Little Monster, and it just stuck. It was cool. And
so you started with the striking arts. Did you do any MMA before you started jiu-jitsu?
I guess you kind of need jiu-jitsu to do MMA. Like, as stubborn as I wanted to be and just say that I didn't want to do jiu-jitsu and I could just step into the cage and head kick people and be done with it, I definitely had to learn jiu-jitsu for MMA, which is funny because it kind of turned around. I kind of steered away from MMA for a long time and just focused strictly on jiu-jitsu and gi jiu-jitsu at that for a long time. So, they definitely go hand in hand. You can't disrespect jiu-jitsu when trying to do MMA.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake that people have made before, and it becomes pretty obvious that they have a large hole in their game that could be exploited. You said you were a competitive pole dancer, is that right?
That's right.
I always like to look at other sports and other competition. Did anything that you learn from one that you bring to the other?
1,000,000%. Yes. I think people undercredit pole dancing a lot, just because of the stigma of the rest of the industry that goes along with it. People just kind of push it to the side. But man, if you ever see a high level pole dancer up there, like 30 stories in the air, hanging on by nothing but their skin on their kneecap, like it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. And the strength that it takes to transition from one trick to the next without falling to your doom is wild. It's absolutely wild. It's death defying. On a daily basis, there are no nets. You fall, that's it. So I think that, having that quick-paced mindset to transition from one trick to the next, having the strength to be able to hold yourself, hoist yourself, to elevate all the way up there and do all of those gymnastics, 3 stories in the air, definitely helps to transition a lot into jiu-jitsu. It gives me a lot of comfort and peace of mind, knowing that I have enough confidence in what I'm doing and to be able to transition from one to the other and think fast. So it definitely gives me a huge edge when it comes to jiu-jitsu and fighting in general.
Yeah, I guess I really have no idea really what competitive pole dancing involves. You're 3 stories up in the air?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them, some poles are small, but some clubs, like ones that I generally tend to work at are definitely 2.5 to 3 stories in the air. So yeah, get all the way up there, climb on some rafters a little bit and have some fun. It's crazy.
Wow. That does sound pretty crazy. A little on the dangerous side, but yeah, I guess that's why you train, and it's similar to, in jiu-jitsu, certain things, you may have me in side control, but if my hands are in good positions, I'm not really freaking out. If you may be 3 stories up, but if you're doing certain things, you feel safe up there. Is that correct? Or I really don't know.
Yeah. You just have to understand yourself, and, you try things small closer to the ground before you try them at the top. I hope you're not scared of heights, because man, it's crazy up there. But, those same principles carry over in jiu-jitsu too. Like, as you're learning a trick, that's why we drill so much. You drill so that you can do it in live action. If you just try to jump into something like a flying triangle choke in the middle of a tournament, it's not going to work out so well for you. You got to practice that kind of thing. You have to have comfort in it and confidence in it and understand the move before you can accomplish it in competition. And that same principle carries over across the board, when it comes to pole dancing as well. So it's the two are so well balanced with one another to be able to transition mindsets. It's incredible. It truly does give me the biggest edge.
Wow. It's always neat to look at different athletic things and see how they compare to one that I'm actually a little more knowledgeable about with jiu-jitsu. What were your first impressions of jiu-jitsu or MMA?
I do remember watching MMA on television. I had no idea what any of this was before I started. I was not a fan. I wasn't someone who watched it and then wanted to do it. I was someone who got discovered and then started fighting and then learned about the sport. So I just remember watching MMA on television. I'm like, why is that guy's butt in that guy's face? And like, why are they barefoot? Why does any of this even make sense? None of it made sense. I very much so remember watching that and just like so confused. And, when I started training myself, I think one of the largest barriers was getting past as a girl. And I know this probably sounds really weird talking to a guy, and I'm sure some of the audience is going to be listening, like, what is going on here? But the sweat, just being in such close quarters with each other and just getting each other's stank on one another. It was very hard for me when I first started, and now I'm just like, oh, whatever. I dropped my mouthpiece on the ground. I'm probably going to pick it up and put it back. But it's getting past that kind of stuff. And it's the little things. And, just getting overwhelmed and not understanding what's happening, getting past that, I need to move and I don't know how to move. I don't know where to move. Everything feels like a really bad position for me right now. None of this is a good decision. It was a huge, huge mental struggle, more so than a physical one. And I know a lot of people probably feel that same way. They think that they're doing something physically wrong. And I mean, you don't know anything to do right. It's definitely more of a mental struggle.
That there are a lot of weird things about this sport, but having somebody drip sweat on my face is one of the things that's like, man, I'd rather not have that happening right now.
Oh, I know. That's the worst.
Close my mouth, close my eyes, but that's one good reason to have good escapes. It's just so that you can get out of that spot quickly.
Yes.
And if that's your first day, it might be like, oh, this is just too much for me. But how would you help somebody get kind of past you talked about just understanding what to do as far as a lot of confusion going on in the beginning. How did you overcome that?
I think one of the most important things, and I tell this to every single person who's brand new, is you're supposed to suck. You're supposed to suck. You're supposed to not know what you're doing. If you did, you wouldn't be in there. We wouldn't need coaches if we had all the answers. You're supposed to struggle, and that's okay. And get comfortable with that. Get comfortable with not knowing anything. Even now, as I'd say a high level purple belt, I mean, I've competed in some of the biggest tournaments that there are out there. I still am very comfortable with the fact that I don't know anything, and I wish I knew that when I first started. I wish I was very comfortable with not knowing anything then. I felt like there was this huge anxiety and need to know all of it at once. And it was like this giant puzzle that I couldn't figure out, and I didn't even have the pieces to put the puzzle together. So it's just one small thing at a time. And really, I mean, if you think about it, jiu-jitsu is simple. It's definitely like 7 moves and little variations to get to those 7 moves. Like, that's it. It's not as hard and as complicated as we all make it out to be. And along the way, you just learn so much, and it's awesome, but it's so simple. It's simple that we overcomplicate it, and you're not supposed to know anything at all. Just go out there and have fun.
Yeah, the simplicity is often really overlooked because there are a lot of moves. But I think I was interviewing Nathan Orchard, and he said, submissions are either a compression, like your chokes are going to be squeezing, or a twist, or a hyperextension. And that's it. Those are the 3 types of submissions. And then from there, there's a million of them. But
right.
there's 3.
Yeah.
There's just different ways to do them.
Yeah, exactly. And jiu-jitsu is the same thing. There's like a few positions, there's like side control, there's guard, there's mount, and then there's just a lot of variations of getting there. But I mean, it's okay. It's okay. Just take it down a few notches and keep it simple. Keep it simple.
That does help quite a bit. Can you tell me, we kind of glossed over a little bit about your personal history. Can you maybe highlight some of your competition history?
Sure. Yeah. I started off, I feel like I got just thrown into the deep end right away. My coach is Vitor Oliveira, and he's currently 2-time world champ, and just, I mean, incredible competitor. He's always medaling at, the Pan Ams and the Worlds, and he's absolutely amazing. So he's on the IBJJF circuit. And when I started competing, I started kind of just going along with the team and what the team was doing, and they're doing the big tournaments. So that's what I walked into as a white belt, and just started smashing it. Won the Worlds when I was white, and then won the Pans twice, the following year at blue. And, I started going off and doing all of them, the American Nationals, and just any tournament that I could get my hands on. If I was available, I was there. Like, sometimes I'd be competing twice in 1 week. I was competing every single week for a long time there, going out to Abu Dhabi and placing out there at the World Pro was just absolutely incredible, to have the opportunity to be sponsored, to just be a part of all of that and soak it all in. I got invited to go and compete at the EBI last minute with 4 days notice, no coach, just going out there and being me and doing what I love to do the most. And it's just, you don't see this vision when you begin. You don't see these types of incredible opportunities happening and getting sponsored by people reaching out to you, like Craigie out in Australia, like, how do I know people in Australia, but it's doing the little things, working your ass off in the gym every single day, and just going out there and competing and having fun and loving what you do. And that's what competing is supposed to be about. It's not about going out there and putting all the pressure. The times I had the most pressure in competitions are the times when I really didn't do all that great, because I suffocated myself with the pressure. If ever you see me getting ready to compete, I am dancing, I am smiling, I am having the time of my life, because that's what we do this for. We don't get paid to do this at first, you guys. Like, it's not a matter of like, oh yeah, I'm going to make that $1 million. Like, there's a few people who are doing those types of things. You got to go out there. You got to love what you're doing. And don't forget that when you go out there to compete. Like, sure, there's a lot laying on the line. We all have our reasons why we're competing. But don't forget why you started this in the first place. And it's because you love it.
Wow. You talk about the pressure really is not a helpful thing for you when you compete. You mentioned dancing and smiling. If you are nervous, if you're feeling that pressure, and you physically start to do something like dance or smile, does it actually make it go away a little bit, or do you have to have the pressure gone and then you could dance and smile?
I do believe in acting your way into feeling more than feeling your way into action. So, there's going to be a lot of times when I'm getting ready to compete, and man, like I just, it's heavy. Sometimes it can get heavy, especially like the worlds, like everybody wants to win the worlds. We're all out there with our blood in our eyes, like wanting it. So you gotta just like act your way into feeling, you start kind of moving around a little bit and loosening up and smiling, and you gotta fake it till you make it. And then you start to feel it in your heart, and I might see a smile on someone else's face, and that calms me down. And then I start feeling a lot better about life, and I start getting back into my zone, listening to the right type of music. Sometimes I forget headphones, and that's the worst, but I don't care, because I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to play my music. And if other people want to listen to it, then that's fine. And they want to put their headphones in, then they can do that too, but I need to be in my zone. I need to be in my happy place. And that's what's important when you're getting ready to go out there and compete, is finding what works for you best. What works for me is just chilling out and being me and doing what I do in the gym every single day, just a whole lot better. And everybody gets to watch now. Like that's the best part about it. So.
Yeah. Crystal, it's about a year ago I interviewed 4 white belts that had won the world championships. And that's by no means like a extensive study of what it takes to become a white belt world champion or what those people are doing. But they were all really good athletes when they came to jiu-jitsu, and they all had different game plans, but they all had a game plan. Tell me a little bit about you competing at Worlds as a white belt and what it took for you to win.
Oh, that was cool. So, you're a white belt. You don't really, I wasn't expecting something like the Worlds. In fact, you hear, just even like listening to somebody talking about the Worlds was like, oh my gosh, you did what? Like, that's crazy. So when someone told me that I should go compete, I was like, no, I don't think so. Really? You think I can? And this had come from a girl named Vanessa Oliveira, who is also a huge black belt competitor and teacher out in Abu Dhabi now. And she was like, yeah, I think you should go compete. Like, you can win it. And listening to her say that, knowing what she had accomplished, I was like, wow, like, you really believe in me. Yeah, I can. And then just every single day listening to my coaches, like, and again, acting my way into feeling. Like, I didn't feel like training every single day. I didn't want to train 4 times in a day, but I did. And I just knew what other people were doing to try to get ready for a tournament like this. And I wasn't going to let anybody take that away from me, because I wanted it badly. Someone believed in me and told me that I could, and I believed in them. So going out there, I had a very specific game plan that I executed very well. And my Worlds experience was kind of crazy, because they came up to me when I knew I had 4 fights in a bracket and I had only fought 3 times. And they're like, that's it. You're done. You won. I was like, what? Are you sure? Like, I have 4 fights. Are you positive? They're like, yeah. Like, here's the bracket. You win. So I'm out there. I'm like, yeah, like, I won. I'm waiting for them to call me to the medal podium. I'm eating acai and hot dogs or whatever they had there. And so my coach comes running up to me. And he's like, Vanessa, what are you doing? I was like, waiting. He's like, no, you have another fight. Get your head in the game now. So I was like, oh shit. And they missed over some girl in the bracket, and she was freaking tough, man. And they gave me an option. They said, you can fight one more time, and this one, if you win, you're the champion. If you lose, you get 3rd. Or, because we told you that you already won, you can just take your win and walk with it. So I'm not one of those people who walks away like knowing that I don't want that medal if I didn't earn that medal, right? So of course I fight for it. And it was the only match. I had submitted all my other opponents. This was the only match that went the whole time limit. Like, it was hard. She was strong. It was a struggle. And I won. I don't remember if I submitted her or not by the end of it, but I know that was probably the most exhausted I ever felt. I came out like my lips were purple, and
Wow.
it was such an awesome experience. And then it was even sweeter to know that I truly earned it. I earned that. I did all the work leading up to it, and I stepped up when I could have walked away and still gotten the same result, but I chose the harder route. And I think that speaks more volumes than anything. You know, it's not about just going out there and taking a win because you can. It's not about going out there and, you know, sandbagging it or just, no, it's about fighting your fucking ass off and stepping up to a challenge when a challenge presents itself, you know, and truly becoming the best possible version of yourself that you can.
It's kind of an odd situation. You fight her, you win, you get first place, you're the champion. You lose, you get third. And you don't have to do this. You already have first. I mean, it's really a sportsmanship attitude that you had in that. And, you know, going down the road in your life, you know you made the harder decision, but you feel really good about your win. And, you know, you might be a little bit embarrassed about that win. Not that you didn't beat a lot of people before that, but like it would have put a little asterisk by your name in your own mind, if anywhere else, and say, well, there was the other girl I didn't have to go up against. You know what I mean? And so I think that made it a really clean, it gave you a clean slate, like as far as the way you feel about the tournament, the way you feel about your performance, and you beat the best in that division that day, and that's really impressive. You said you submitted everybody, maybe not the last girl. Do you remember what the submissions were, or what your favorite submission back then was?
I'm very well known for pulling guard and arm barring and finishing most all of my opponents within the first 40 seconds. It's very common for me.
Do you, to kind of look at this a little bit further, are you just pulling guard, or are you halfway kind of pulling an arm bar, or a type of guard that really sets you up for that?
No, I am just pulling full guard and arm barring.
And just go right to work.
Very swiftly. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And if I don't have to play around, I'm not playing around.
And that's what you're doing as a white belt?
Yes.
And so this is also an interesting thing. Here you are, purple belt, competing at a high level. Are you still doing a lot of arm bars from the guard?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
It's neat
that game plan has not changed.
It's always neat to see how some things just stick with you, and you know it could be 15 years down the road, and my arm bar from guard's great. You know, like you don't need to abandon that for something new or flashy or the flavor of the month. Nothing.
Right.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that technique, especially if it's working so well, and it's something that you've spent a lot of time on developing. Sounds like.
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, if you have something that's working, it's not the man that goes out there and knows 10,000 techniques and can do them once. You know, it's the man that does one technique 10,000 times. And it's such a played out saying, but man, it's so true. I read a lot. I do a lot of self-development, and mentally, I think the psychological game is just as important as the physical one. And I was reading about a pitcher, you know, who was losing for the Yankees. And, you know, his coach came up to him and said, "What's your best pitch?" And he told him, and he said, "I want you to work on that one pitch. I don't want you to pitch anything else. I want you to work on that one pitch all off season, every single day." And he did. And he came back and pitched like a perfect season. Like, it was, and it's things like that. Like, if something's working for you, if you're really good at it, like, keep at that. You know, learn other techniques, work on your weaknesses, but strengthen your strengths, man. Like, we've all got them. Know what yours is and fine tune that, because that's what's going to work for you. That's your comfort zone. That's what you're going to do in competition. You're not going to do that technique that you tried with the flying thingy and backflip. Like, if it happens, it's on a fluke, you know, or it's because you were super intentional and worked that one thing a million times.
Yeah. And
I had a coach tell me one time that for every hour of training that we do, that accounts for 10 seconds in competition. So, you know, there's a lot of time that goes onto those mats. Focus on the things that you're great at.
Well, Crystal, I guess, you said you have a lot of quick matches, though. So 10 seconds go by fast, or maybe get you through several matches at a time if you're having 40-second matches and 50-second matches. So,
hey, man, there's a lot of time spent on those mats doing the same things over and over again.
Yeah, but your ratio might even be less seconds, because if you train for hours and hours and hours and go out there and have 3 matches that are all under 2 minutes, the ratio might be even less than that. But
right.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Well, I started training like a pro from day one. Like I said, there was no time to waste. There was no figuring out for me, is this something I'm going to kind of try and be good at? It was like day one, boom, you're training like a pro. You're doing 3 to 4 sessions a day. And you're taking this thing seriously. So I'm kind of an extremist in life. There's nothing that I'm going to step my foot into that I don't have every intention of accomplishing at its highest level.
Why do you think that is? Why did you come at this very seriously and just like devote all your energy towards it? And what about jiu-jitsu? What about you? What caused that?
There's no time to waste in life. I feel like I have this sense of urgency with patience. Like, I don't know. I really don't know where a lot of that stuff came from for me. I think growing up, I grew up, I was like a really bad student, getting kicked out of schools. I got kicked out of 4 schools in 1 year. And I ended up on drugs and homeless as a teenager, before I even graduated high school. And I partied my ass off until I was almost about 21 years old. And I think for me, I wasted a lot of time, and I really negated a lot of options in life. So when it came to stuff like this, I just made a decision for myself of like, you can kind of just fumble around in life, or you can really stick down and do something, because I wasted enough time on the front end, and this is really all I have. I know a lot of other people, they have options, they have college, they have people who got their back and other jobs, and, this is a hobby, and it's not for me. This is my whole entire life. This is all I have. It's my only option. So I'm going to give it my absolute, if I have a little bit of success here, then that's a lot more than I would have had anywhere else.
What do you see for you, I don't know, long-term, like 5 years down the road? MMA, jiu-jitsu, teaching, what are your goals kind of at the intermediate range?
I want to be in the UFC world champion. That's my goal. I'm a 115er. I've already, kind of opened up a lot of doors for myself. And I do believe that that is a viable option, because I know that anything is possible. I've gotten myself around the right people, and I've done everything that it takes to be able to accomplish that goal.
Wow, that's awesome.
And after that, I do hope to be able to, spread a message to any single person whose ears it reaches, that it doesn't matter where you come from or what you think you can and can't accomplish. Like, you can go out there and just take life by the horns and do whatever it is that your heart desires.
Did martial arts kind of help get you on track as far as kind of clean up some of your off the mat life?
Yes, it did. Martial arts is the first thing that really taught me structure. It was the first time that it really taught me to be humble, that it doesn't matter what type of badass mindset you have. You don't know nothing. You don't know anything. Someone else is going to have more technique than you, and they're going to stomp on you and do it in such a pleasant way. I walked into a gym with a huge chip on my shoulder, and people didn't treat me like crap, like they should have, maybe. And they definitely treated me kindly and beat the shit out of me at the same time. But they told me how to learn and how to settle. And, you see the new guy who walks into the gym maybe with an attitude problem, and they're 1,000% aggressive. And you just kind of got to come at them and slow them down, and that's what my gym did for me. And it really saved me. It gave me a comfortable place to come back to and, know that they're going to hurt me, but it's not malicious. They're doing this to help me, and it saved me in so many more ways than just fighting. It saved me as a person.
Wow. That is I think, inspirational story. And it's great to see where your goals are, and I think you can get there. You definitely have the determination and drive behind you. You have the physical abilities, that come with the hard work and some of that talent that you've developed so far. You are going to be a fun person to watch as the years go by and you progress on your martial arts journey.
Thank you for that. Truly, thank you for that.
Crystal, you mentioned that you read a lot. I also am fond of reading. Do you have any, just out of my own personal curiosity, do you have any like book recommendations, or do you read fiction, or if you're reading like stuff like sports psychology or different stories that are related, maybe not just to martial arts, but just something that might motivate you? Any good books that the audience might want to hear about?
Definitely read The Secret. Go out, pick that book up, and just dig in. I mean, I quit school at 9th grade, really. I don't know how I got my high school diploma, but listen, I was never a reader growing up. Never. I never finished a book in my life. Hardly did a homework assignment. The types of books I read are self-development, self-help, motivational, leadership development, attitude and mindset. Go get The Secret. I forget who the name of the author is, but man, that book just totally changed the way that I think. And there's a lot of books out there that are like that. Think and Grow Rich is a book I'm reading right now by Napoleon Hill. And, it's just a lot of empowerment. Daring Greatly is another one. It talks a lot about, vulnerability, and it's okay, to open yourself up, and it's okay to suck, and it's okay to fail. Just continue to push forth. I think that was a huge thing that Theodore Roosevelt talked about. It's not I don't even know the exact quote. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are starting to quote it right now, like as they listen to this, but it's not the guy who shies away from competition and doesn't try at all. It's the person who goes out there and just lays it all on the line, and they dare greatly. And those are the ones who are going to fail and fail and fail until they succeed. And that's what's most worth it every single time. And it's books like that have really shaped my mind, on top of just having the determination and the drive. And that goes back to the guy who's just trying to be as aggressive as possible and not knowing what they're doing. You give somebody the right tools and they can become unstoppable. And that's what books have done on top of martial arts.
Wow. That's cool. Books, I'm a big fan of reading podcasts and that sort of thing as well. But you get to learn so much from somebody you never have to even meet. Not that it would be bad to meet these people, but you never get the chance to meet some of these authors. And so you still get to absorb a lot of their wisdom and knowledge through this process. And if you're receptive to it, it could really be life-changing.
Absolutely. 100%. Oh, there's another book, The Compound Effect, that, that's probably one of the first ones that I ever read that really started to kind of, one thing on top of another will add up 100 times over.
I have not read that one. It sounds a little bit similar to The Tipping Point, perhaps, but yeah, it is. Yeah, that
same concept. Yes,
I'll check that one out as well. I've got some new stuff to read, and that's always good. Thanks, Crystal. How much did you compete? I hate to keep bringing kind of back the old stuff, but it's just fascinating to me for somebody who won the white belt worlds, like how good you got at jiu-jitsu quickly. And I know you took it like as seriously as a job, as you were doing this full time, you were all in, but how long did you train before that period, and how much did you compete before that, you think?
I've been training for about 1 year before I had competed in the white belts worlds. So, and I was, any competition I could get my hands on, I was there. I was doing it. It's not like I was getting on planes and flying all over the place at that point because I was still a white belt, still trying to kind of find myself. But man, if there was a tournament, if it was local or if it was even a bigger tournament that was within like an 8 hours driving distance, I was there. And I was definitely going to make sure that I laid it all on the line to see what I could accomplish all the way up until Worlds.
Cool. If somebody's newer at jiu-jitsu, still that white belt phase, they may not be going to Worlds, but they want to do well in their competitions. Maybe they can't train as much as you did.
Yeah.
But what advice do you have for somebody who's wanting to do good early on in jiu-jitsu?
Definitely just focus on the small stuff. The basics count so much. Even all I do is the basics when it comes to competitions. Like the flashy stuff, like it's there, you're going to learn it and it's cool and it's exciting and you want to know all of that super fancy things, but man, stick to the little stuff and get really, really good at that basic stuff. Just that's gonna make the largest difference in your jiu-jitsu game, and especially when it comes to competition. You can go out there and crush it if all you focus on is just the simple basics.
Yeah, that I agree. Get like you said, sharpen the sword that you already have. Like make your best things even better. And yeah, you need to have good defense and you need to know other things about the game. But why not have, if you're a white belt and you have a blue belt or purple belt level technique, get to that technique on the mat and see how it goes for you. It's going to go great.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And
you got a little trick up your sleeve. Work on that trick.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Don't try to know all the tricks.
and Crystal, I really like how your technique, armbar from guard, boom, really not that hard of a position to obtain. You're getting it generally in the opening seconds of the match. You're setting up that position. If your best position or best submission was armbar from mount, it would be a whole different game. You would have to take somebody down or have them pull guard and then pass their guard and then get to the mount and then apply the technique. But your best technique is in a position you could usually obtain pretty easily, I'm guessing.
That's right. It's I am offensive about getting what I want to accomplish. That's absolutely. If you're not being offensive, you're on the defense. So I don't want to play into somebody else's game. This is my arena.
Yeah.
You're walking out here to try to prevent bodily harm to who I am as a person. So I'm definitely going to defend myself, and I'm going to do that by being on the offense.
What was what is the transition like going from competition jiu-jitsu to MMA or back and forth?
Oh man, great question. Definitely walking into a jiu-jitsu arena, you got to be more, you don't prepare for anybody. You just don't. Like you can't look at a bracket and be like, oh, there's 17 people. I'm going to look every single person up and, know each person's game and strength. And you don't do that in jiu-jitsu. So you go out there and you work on your game plan and you do the best to your ability. So when it comes to MMA, I feel that a lot of people really over strategize their opponent. And, they do this studying and, this person's really great at this, so I need to do that to counter it. And I feel that jiu-jitsu has helped me in the MMA arena to where I feel confident walking in there and knowing my abilities and my strengths are my abilities and my strengths. And I'm going to play to that. I am going to bring them into my arena and I'm going to fight to the best that I'm going to fight. Instead of psyching myself out over some opponent who's standing across the cage who's already psyched out about me. Like that's not, the MMA mindset I feel sometimes is definitely overdrawn. And, there is a degree to where you need to know your opponent. But I think that competing as much as I do and as often as I do in jiu-jitsu helps me feel a lot more calm in that high pressure situation, as well as really changes the way that I look at MMA fighting. We
talked a bit about your favorite, some of your favorite techniques. I was guessing those are for jiu-jitsu. Are they the same techniques you like for MMA, or do you kind of change things up as far as what you're doing in the cage?
Well, you have to change things up in the cage. You definitely don't want to be on the bottom getting punched in the face, even if you do have somebody in your guard. So that's not a game plan. It's not a good one, at least when it comes to MMA. Although I do end up there fairly often. And thank goodness I'm confident enough in my jiu-jitsu to be able to escape those positions. But yeah, the game plan's totally different for MMA. You know, that's my strength is jiu-jitsu. So I do want to get them down and grapple on the ground. But I have to work a lot more top position, a lot more controlled scenarios. Like in jiu-jitsu, you will stay on the ground with an opponent and stay engaged. Where in MMA, they're just going to stand right on up, and now you got to take them down all over again. So it's definitely a different type of grappling. It's a totally different animal.
Yeah, Crystal, having done no MMA and no plans to myself, but it is frustrating to see somebody, get on the ground and then try to work like, I don't know, a butterfly guard with really not controlling their head at all, and the person just stands up and says, "Okay, stand back up again." It's like that wasn't. You didn't really plan that out too well because it works great in jiu-jitsu, but in MMA you need a way to attach them to you, half guard or full guard or something that they can't just take a step back and make you reset. And you definitely need that.
Yes, and it's so frustrating. In MMA, jiu-jitsu doesn't work unless the other person's willing to play jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it all works great if if you put me on my back and you pass my guard and you're on top of me and you're smashing me. Like, I can't just stand up out of that. But a lot of the positions, you need to just have the idea that, can this person just walk away from this? And if they do, I need to change it up a little bit and and make my jiu-jitsu work for the competition that you're entering. That's
right. Absolutely. And the jiu-jitsu changes too, even amongst competitions. I personally, I will fight in the gi, full rule sets to my level of jiu-jitsu, which is purple belt, or I will, fight a submission only tournament. Which is no gi, submission only, all submissions legal, and no time limit or EBI rules. And the jiu-jitsu changes. You can't go into a no gi submission only tournament and be focusing on points. Or I can't put the gi on and walk into the worlds and be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to play for the submissions at all times, because there's a time limit. And when points are involved, if you don't get that submission, man, you're out of luck. You lost. So you definitely need to change the jiu-jitsu as well amongst the different tournaments and know what you're focusing on and train for that.
Yeah, that's big. And I mean, even as, gi, no gi, MMA, you're doing a lot of different things. And there's different things that are easier or harder in all of them.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, all of them have their advantages and disadvantages, and that's why we have all these different sports, even amongst the one sport. I feel like there's 7 different sports amongst jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because they all have their advantages, and we're all good at, we all have our specialties that we like to play too.
Yeah. Crystal, thinking back towards maybe you at the beginning of your jiu-jitsu career or MMA career, what frustrated you at the beginning, and how did you get past that? And if you're
I have to speak as a girl, and I have to speak as a smaller girl. So I walk around at 125, 130 pounds, and I was, wrestling with these large MMA mindset individuals and guys who, they were trying to be as cool as they could be and, letting me learn. But at the same time, I'm just getting owned. And I think that was the hardest thing for me. I used to go home and cry every day, and I talk about it, and I'm okay. I'm comfortable with that. But it was really hard, just drowning every day, just getting submitted and getting owned. And, you got somebody wrapped around your neck, and there's nothing you can do to get them off except for tap. And you're trying to be tough, and you want to get better, and you don't want to be tapping 1,000,000 times in one round. And, everyone else is just you can feel that they're just toying with you. you know that you are just no competition whatsoever for them. And that's frustrating. You want to be taken seriously. You know, you want to be a threat. You want to, I remember there was times when I would get to a good position and that was a great day. Like one good position in 3 rounds for me was a good day, you know, or I would walk off the mats and be like, man, that person didn't submit me that round. Like, that was a great day. And it's just, even now, like, I try not to get away from that too much. I try to put myself into bad positions. And if I can walk off the mats and be like, I accomplished this small feat, like, that's a good day. But starting off was so hard, you know, just getting past that section of, you know, wanting to be taken seriously and wanting to do good and just drowning and getting comfortable in that's hard. That's a hard place to be comfortable.
Yeah, Crystal, I can see how that would be a frustrating thing, walking in there and having these larger guys do jiu-jitsu to you a lot easier and you're just trying to just do an escape or anything, and it'd be very frustrating. From a guy's point of view, like me, if I'm going to train with somebody who is a newer female, what would you recommend that I do as far as being a good training partner to not make it a super frustrating and a negative experience?
It's hard being a girl out there on those mats with the big guys. And I think the best thing that everybody can do to help the girls is, you know, just let them fight, you know, let them move a little bit. Sure, you don't ever want to give somebody false hope, you know, because you don't want them to think like, oh yeah, that's going to work with somebody else. But give them that, like, allow them to work a little bit, like, allow them to move through the positions. And they did do that with me as well, you know, coming up, which is why I felt comfortable going back every day. You know, I know that I was getting owned a lot, but I also know that they were trying to help me through that. And it's not a matter of stopping in the middle of the round to give somebody advice. You know, that's not the time to be coaching. Roll and let them move, let them get out, and then get them back in a bad position and let them get out again. And I think little things like that is going to really help the community a lot more with allowing girls to feel empowered while still letting them get work in and, you know, letting them just be there on the mats with everybody and a part of what is jiu-jitsu instead of trying to separate us all the time.
Yeah, be a good training partner. It's the same as an upper belt rolling with a white belt. You don't need to just beat them up all the time. Let them work some things, work different positions. If it goes, you know, black belt takes white belt down, passes guard, submits them over and over again. That's not doing anybody any good. Let the people work a little bit and maybe experiment, try something new for you. If jiu-jitsu is easy on that other person, and you'll both learn something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I heard I train a lot in New York as well, with Gary Tonin under his school and Tom DeBlas under Tom DeBlas' school, Ocean County. And something that Nikki Ryan actually said to me, which really stuck and was super profound, was like, you're not supposed to roll with people who are better than you every single round and get smashed all the time. You know, sometimes rolling with people who aren't as excellent as you gives you that opportunity to be able to hit the moves that you've been working so hard on. You know, someone who's 100 times better than you, they're kind of going to see that stuff coming from a mile away, and you never get to really work on that submission. So if you're an upper belt, you know, and you're rolling with lower belts and everything, let them work and take that time to really do that cool stuff that you've been working so hard on.
Yeah, that's great advice. I had Nikki here on the show a while ago, and that's really cool. He said that, you know, there are really 3 types of training partners: those that are not as good as you, those are about the same, and those that are better. And you need all 3 to really advance your game and to help the art.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a 30% rule, or 30% rule.
All right. Hey, I know you're doing this. You're very busy. You know, you're very serious with your martial arts. Do you have any sponsors? Anybody that's out there helping you?
Oh my gosh, yes. Definitely want to give some really awesome shout outs to Want versus Need was one of the first people to step up and sponsor me. Crazy Gear out of Australia. Those crazy Aussies. And definitely Just Roll is a really cool company. They sponsor a lot of females and really big in the community. And Punch Gunk is super awesome. They're brand new to the game, so definitely check them out. If you got any sores or spots like muscle tension, it's really good for muscle tension, Punch Gunk. You know, it's made for us competitive martial arts athletes, and it's really awesome stuff. I love Punch Gunk.
Okay, tell me a little bit more. What is Punch Gunk? Like, what is it? What are you doing
Punch Gunk is awesome. So, like, you ever like use like Bengay and then you get on the mats or something, and it's super stinky, and if you touch it and touch on someone else, and then like now they've kind of got it on them, and they might not want any. And Punch Gunk is just so great because like it doesn't have that huge aroma, and it really gets in there to your muscles. Like, I feel like a lot of the over-the-counter stuff is made for like the average person who's just kind of sore from day to day. But like Punch Gunk is made for us. Like, it's made to get in there and help to relieve that stress and that tension on your muscles. It's good stuff.
Cool.
I love it. Yeah.
That's
and not just because they sponsor me. Like, that was some passion coming out there on some Punch Gunk.
I never heard of it, and it sounds like an interesting thing.
Yeah, check them out.
Crystal, where can somebody follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
Snapchat. I Snapchat everything all the time. Monster Demo is my Snapchat. And I'm also on Instagram, Lil Monster Demo, and Facebook. If I see you, I promise I try to hit all the friend requests. Crystal Venessa, Demopoulos. So I'll definitely pop up. But yeah, if anyone's on Snapchat, I love having fun on there, and I'm super interactive and crazy out of my mind. So
cool. Crystal, I really appreciate you doing the interview today. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is great. You're doing a really awesome job, and I very much appreciate you having me here on the show.
Yep. Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Crystal for taking the time out of her busy day to come talk to us. Like we said before, you know, she's just an awesome competitor and really wants to, start working on MMA.
Yeah, it was really fun to kind of get to know her, and she'll definitely be one that's worth following and keeping up with as she progresses in her martial arts journey.
So definitely keep an eye out, and you'll probably be seeing a lot more of Crystal.
Absolutely. Gary, excited? We have a brand new Patreon supporter this week.
Who do we got this week, Byron?
Our newest Patreon supporter is David Sigthorsson, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. If not, give me a holler. But David, welcome to the group of loyal Patreon supporters. David has signed up to kick us some money every show. So basically every show goes by, David's saying, yeah, that was a good job, here's $1. And at the end of the month, Patreon goes through and says, okay, they had 4 shows, so David's charged $4, and that sent most of that sent to us. The good folks at Patreon get a kick of that as well. But it's really been a lifesaver, this Patreon, having people get added to the list here. And just looking at all the names that are on here already, I'm really honored to have the supporters that we have. And it's been a great way that the audience has been able to help participate and keep this brick floating. You know, the brick is not the most buoyant thing to build out of, and if we want to make this thing float, we do need your guys' help. And thanks for David for signing up.
And I know, Byron, you've talked about, your support and, help us keep this brick afloat. I would like to thank the guy who sent us some floaties. We really appreciate that, but really we need Patreon supporters. So David, I'd like to dedicate this show to David. And if you know David, give him a pat on the back and tell him thank you for keeping the BJJ brick buoyant.
There we go. I really appreciate it, guys.
Yep. Hey, I think we should give Joe a call up here and talk to him about the article. What do you think about that, Byron?
Good idea. Let's get him on the horn.
We are lucky to have Joe Thomas this week again with us. Joe, we call the third member of the BJJ Brick podcast. Actually, I'm trying to get him moved up to the first member and kicking Byron out of here. because Joe's so much more nicer to me than Byron. But Byron, every time I mention it, puts me in a headlock and taps me out. So I haven't had much luck, but I'll keep working on it.
Gary, I'm jumping in here. About a month or so ago, you had an audiobook about a grape and jiu-jitsu or whatever, and talking about headlocks. What does a grape say when it's stuck in a headlock?
I have no clue.
I got to warn you, this is going to be a bad joke. You don't know? Joe, anything?
I have no idea.
Doesn't say anything. It just lets out a little wine.
That was terrible.
Oh, that was bad.
All right, since I have derailed your momentum, Gary, you're getting ready to throw the article onto the table, and we're going to discuss it.
Yep. Like I said, we have Joe Thomas again here this week. We have an article this week. It's called Expanding Your Jiu-Jitsu in a Logical Manner. Hey, Joe, talk to us a little bit about your newest article.
Okay. The idea came to me, a white belt who's been training about 6 or 8 months posed the question that they thought they developed a halfway decent closed guard game, but now they were finding their training partners could break their guard and go to a standing position and pass their guard. They didn't have any answers for it. So the question was, which card should I add to deal with this? And first of all, I thought it was great that they were, looking for advice and trying to answer the question. But then I thought it would be better if they learned to figure it out on their own. And so I kind of put together a list of questions that you might ask yourself when you reach that point where your game needs to evolve and expand. Because all of our games do. I mean, we start with a pretty limited game, and then our training partners figure it out, and we go up against tougher competition when we're at comps, and so our game does need to expand. So the first question I would propose that somebody asks themselves, if they're in this situation where my closed guard's getting broken and I don't have an answer for it, when you're thinking about the guards that you might want to add, first of all, ask yourself if you have explored all the options of the position that you're not abandoning but moving on from already. This would be especially pertinent if you had a competition coming up in a month or two, because you don't want to introduce a bunch of new stuff before a competition. So maybe there are things about your closed guard, just a couple tweaks you can make to make that work for you again.
I like what you say in that paragraph. Perhaps with a few simple tweaks, you can get some more mileage out of that position. Like you said, sometimes it's not the best idea to abandon it. And, just by troubleshooting yourself, a couple tweaks and you solve those problems of the person, standing up in your guard. What do I need to do? And you just do something, very small, and it's back to working very good for you. And, the other point, I think, you're talking about competition-wise, and you're probably running into this just in practice, especially with your training partners. Your training partners are going against you every day. We always have to evolve. They're evolving, because they're seeing the same thing from you all the time, and they're figuring out some simple tweaks. And, so I always look at it that, hey, now it's time for me to evolve and get a couple simple tweaks to keep that person from standing up in my guard or whatever position we're talking about. But I really like that. Have you explored all the options?
It's like an arms race, right?
Yeah, definitely. Joe, what's the next question you normally ask?
Well, does it solve the problem? So sticking with the first example I gave of the white belt who was getting his guard broken and then opponents were doing standing passes. If that's the problem that you're trying to solve, maybe half guard's not the next guard you want to work on. So you need to look at what the problem is and what it's going to take to solve it.
Yep, and you make a good explanation there. That guy standing up, it's probably better to focus on, from the broken closed guard to a single leg X or an X guard or even a De La Riva guard. That's more pertinent to, like you said, the person standing up in your guard.
It's not the best use of time to try to solve a problem that doesn't even exist.
Very well well said, Byron. That's a good point. The next point was, does it fit with the game you're already playing? And maybe a better phrase would be, does it complement your current game? I think we'd all agree that certain positions favor certain submissions. And so if you're a cross-collar guy, then maybe you want to look for positions where you can still utilize that. If you got a really good back game, really good control, good submissions, and you don't play a lot of half guard, and you want to add some half guard to it, the first technique I would suggest is to take the back from half guard. I mean, it just complements what you already do, and it makes more sense maybe than sweeping and ending up in top half guard if that's not a position you're strong from.
Yeah, that's a good example. You're working off that base. You know, your half guard is not going to be easily sliced through. You got a lot going for you there. Why not add something to the pre-existing framework there? I think an example that I have recently is Gary has shown me the path to the dark side as far as helping me with my leg locks. I'm pretty comfortable doing some leg locks, but in reality, you know, some I get, some I miss. I don't get tapped a lot with them, but you know, to explain how much better Gary's leg locks are, I basically only tap to Gary's leg locks. A few others get me from time to time, but I don't escape Gary's leg locks. Like, I'll go from one maybe to the second one and get caught there, but usually the first one will catch me on that one. So clearly, he's, you know, way ahead of me on my leg lock. So I was working with him, having him show me some stuff and helping me work some stuff out. And we worked about an hour and a half on this. I said, okay, now show me where I could do this from leg drag position. What do we have here from this? And we were kind of looking at and kind of looking at different ways to enter in some of these techniques from a position I find myself in a lot. And just kind of exploring my own game and trying to match up some pieces with Gary's game to kind of make my own style and find ways that I can actually get there with a little more success.
You know, Byron, I didn't think about that. And Joe, your paragraph right there, does it fit with the game you're already playing? And, you know, as Byron says, I like the dark side. I do like leg locks. But so we started exploring the leg drag position, which Byron loves the leg drag, and I rarely ever use it. So I was playing defense and letting Byron work from the leg drag position, and you know, he's trying to figure out leg locks from there or whatever, and you know, we're working through it. So I was like, boy, Byron, that felt like a pretty good leg lock. Let me try it. And so I went for that position, which is a position I don't use. It's a position, you know, part of the game I'm not already playing. And boy, I felt like a fish out of water. And like I was telling Byron, I was like, man, I'm terrible at this one. It just doesn't feel comfortable for me. And really, I think it goes back to like what you're saying, Joe. It's not a game I'm familiar with. I mean, I can get to that point, you know, by practicing it, but it's not a path I take all the time that I'm really familiar with. So I was feeling lost.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense just to take things one step at a time and go to the next logical step and not skip anything.
Yeah, and Joe, what's your next step? Next question you ask.
Does it fit with your physical attributes, your current skill set, and your experience level? We all know that some things are going to be easier for guys with long limbs and might be a little harder for those of us with short limbs. And so I don't want to take on something that's just by nature going to be more difficult for me than it needs to be. That being said, almost every position is doable for anybody. You just have to find the right hip movement, the right angles, and work from there.
Yeah, I like what you said. You know, almost everything is doable for everybody. And I remember when I first started, I hadn't been training very long, and you know, my triangle was terrible. And I remember saying to myself, I didn't think I'd ever get a good triangle. And, you know, I attribute it, you know, I thought I was old at that time. I wasn't even 40, you know, I was probably 35, 36, 37. And, you know, I was thinking, you know, at my age, I'm not very flexible. My back, you know, has issues. I'm probably never going to have a good triangle. And so for like a year, I never really attempted to work the triangle. I had it in my head that it wasn't going to be my move or anything of that sort. But it's kind of crazy. I've, you know, started, or who was it? It was Byron, you remember Ricky Weimer? Ricky came and trained. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we remember him. But Ricky came and trained and showed me a setup to a triangle. And, my triangle just exploded after that. I was triangling everybody, and it became one of my moves. But, it's crazy. I had it in my head that I couldn't do it. But like Joe says, really, you can probably about do everything, if you just put your mind to it.
Yeah, the first exposure I had to X-guard, when you're training that position for the very first time, your opponent just stands over you and allows you to put your hooks in place. And from that approach, man, I thought I really liked the X-guard. I felt like the sweeps were strong and I had lots of options. But then when it came to live rolling, it's like, I cannot get into this position to save my life. I don't have the dexterity in my legs. I can't fold them up enough to get underneath. And so like you, Gary, I kind of abandoned it. But then the last year or so, I've had a lot of coaches and teammates, just showing me little tweaks. You just move your hips a little further this way, or maybe try entering from the single leg X. And so, yeah, like you, it's opening up new options for me that I had kind of given up on at one point.
Yeah. And, anybody listening, you're having trouble with a move or you just don't think it's going to work. I always say that once I have that in my head, I've defeated myself, telling me that, hey, it's not going to work. Keep working at it. And, who knows, it may become your move, but you get so much satisfaction out of getting something to work or, adding into your game that you were having so much trouble with. And there's so much reward in the end of, through good hard work and patience. And patience is a key attribute for jiu-jitsu.
Gary, to kind of push back on you a little bit here, you're a stubborn guy, and if you want to do something that you typically find a way to make it work. But if something's not working for me at all, I put it on the shelf and say, I don't necessarily give up on it, but I find something that works for me a little bit easier. And I feel that like if I'm training for, 2 hours on something that I'm really terrible at and I'm still pretty terrible at it, I'd rather work on for 2 hours something I'm okay at and become pretty good at by the end of those 2 hours. So I think that there's two schools of thought. They're both valid. It's definitely, really rewarding to get that move that like, I don't think I could do this, and just hang in there and fight that doubt and get it. But for myself, a lot of times I just like, it's not worth my time. I've got other stuff that I could become actually proficient at in this amount of time.
Yeah. And Byron, I do agree with that. I'm that guy that I would rather have less tools in my tool bag. How's that, Joe? My tool bag, than having a huge tool bag with just a whole bunch of tools that I'm okay at. But the majority of us are not instructors. So we're going to, have to, go through the curriculum that our coach or professor or teacher has set out. So we're going to be learning stuff that may not be our best, may not be what we want to learn. But, don't close your mind to, your instructor's showing you how to do this move and you're having trouble with it, because it's going to come back around. You might spend a couple weeks on it. You might spend a week on it. You still don't get it. You've kind of not spend a lot of time working at it, but it is going to come back around in the curriculum. There, you are going to be taught it again. You are going to go through it again, and so try to keep an open mind and just try, and I guarantee you, sooner or later you'll get it.
The next point that I had was when you're looking at adding something to your game to solve a problem, is it the next logical step in regard to complexity and difficulty? And this is kind of a far-fetched example, but it was the first one I came up with. If you got a couple of takedowns and they're not working for you anymore, so you're thinking, I got to do something to have more attacks for my feet, to be more effective for my feet. Learning to do flying triangles and flying arm bars might be a possible solution. But it might not be the next logical step in your development. If you are not already really quick on your feet and comfortable on your feet, then flying and jumping is going to be difficult. And certainly if you're not already very proficient at triangles and arm bars and transitions and from a number of different positions, you're likely to just end up on your head. So I think there is a logical progression of techniques, and that's just kind of an example of one that's not.
Yeah, just that example of like, taking let's say your double leg is getting you in trouble, your single leg isn't really working for you anymore, and so you need a new way to get this match to the ground. So you're looking at doing one of the more tricky things. The takedowns, to me, break down in different categories. Some require speed, some do not. I'm a big fan of the foot sweep. Getting a good, strong tie on the back of their neck with my right hand and making them a little off balance, and then sweeping that right foot out from underneath them and just putting them right on their side, on their hip, on the ground. It doesn't require speed, doesn't require a lot of strength or power. It's timing. And the beauty of that sort of thing is I control the timing by how I push that person. And so, evaluating, no, don't give up on the takedown game, but find something that fits what you want to do. Not all takedowns need to be really aggressive and muscle and speed and power. A few of them are revolve around timing and reacting off your opponent's movement, and maybe just gravitate towards those. They may or may not be more difficult or complex, but it's just when I've traded, I'm not doing that anymore. I try to find something that fits my game, and I'm not that big, strong wrestling guy. That would be fun to be that person, though.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be neat if you could just change your game around. All of a sudden become a big, strong wrestler or, a very good inverted guard player. I think that would be neat to just change it around every now and then.
Only on the PlayStation, Gary.
I'm telling you, I'm deadly on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
So this is another fun article. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you can see how that point about logical progression could be applied to other aspects as well, though. Some guys are really good at, Granby rolls and Demopoulos and, fancy ways to get to the back. And that all has a time and place. But if you've been doing jiu-jitsu for, 6 months and you're not comfortable with those kind of movements without an opponent, then trying to make that your go-to move might not make a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I see that happen a lot of times. And that kind of goes back to, I know we've talked about Byron talks about the flavor of the month, and somebody sees that and, just learning so many moves and having trouble with it even against a non-resisting opponent. It's definitely not going to work when you're live rolling.
I think, look at this example. I mean, you say likely the flying armbar may not be the most logical step for you, but who would the flying armbar be a good step for? First off, I would say you got a really good armbar from the guard, outstanding armbar from the guard. Okay, you've got a good ability to pull guard in a safe manner, like pull close guard, like hop on the person and pull them down your guard. If those are two things that you're comfortable with doing, maybe you consider adding, this technique to your game. But there may be a few things in there I'm missing. I don't have a flight number. I don't attempt that. I'm a little cautious of doing that. But just kind of looking back at the article, is it building on things that you already have? And if it is, maybe it's something that'd be great for you. If your armbar is terrible, your flying armbar is going to be terrible. There's nothing that making it flying is going to help it do.
Thanks, Byron. You boiled that down and said exactly what I meant to say with all those other words.
Just rambling over here is all I'm doing. I misspell a lot less words when I just say them. I just mispronounce them.
All right, before we finish this one up, I did want to just touch on the last point about asking your coach what they think. And I put in there that you should consider hitting them up for a private lesson, and that's really a win-win. I know a lot of guys still are going to smaller schools. Maybe the coach has a day job and teaches at night. Maybe their spouse is working to support them. And so when you catch a private lesson from them, not only are you getting that really good one-on-one instruction, but if you pay them $80 or $60, whatever, for that lesson, then maybe have some extra birthday presents they can buy for one of their kids or something. So for anybody listening, keep that in mind. If you want to hit your coach up for a private lesson, I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely a good point. And, your instructor is definitely not getting rich teaching. Devotes a lot of time, and effort to that school, teaching you a very, intense art like we're doing. Spending a lot of time going on weekends to tournaments. If you got people fighting, there's tons of time that your coach is putting in outside of the regular gym hours. So definitely you're going to learn a lot from your coach with that private lesson. And like you said, it's going to help the school stay in business, going to make, maybe like you said, make it a little easier for your coach to buy that Christmas present or birthday present or whatever needs to be done.
Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure having you on here. We look forward to having you on again in the future.
All right, guys. It was nice talking to you.
Appreciate it, Joe. Have a great day, sir.
All right, with the article wrapped up, Gary, it is time, my friend, to talk about your audiobook that you've been working on. And I know it's a newly inspired audiobook, but every week, almost every week, except for when I forget and when Gary distracts me enough to forget, Gary gets a new title of an audiobook, and he must kind of hammer out the idea behind it. And I don't know where you're going to go with this one. The title is Room Temperature Water, Why I Only Drink Room Temperature Water While I'm on the Mats.
The big things going around right now is the pH water, the alkaline water, and all that. But I do think people are missing the boat with room temperature water. And I do think that I had to come out with an audiobook to let people know about it. First of all, Byron, what do you do, before you get into a hard roll? Like, what do you do with to get ready for it?
The first thing I do is I start putting ice in my water.
No.
I stretch a little bit, limber up, that sort of thing, just to kind of keep everything loose and get ready to perform.
People are missing out on the room temperature water. Like you said, you warm up before you get on the mat for a hard... you're on the mat warming up, but before you get into your hard rolls. You think about, a hard roll. What do you need to do before you get into a hard roll? You need to get that blood flowing. You need to, warm your body temperature up so that hard roll, you're not going to get hurt. You think about, and that's just talking about, getting out there and really exerting yourself. We call it a hard roll. Think what else when you got a hard roll. Let's say you have an old, 4-day-old roll, dinner roll.
Oh, man, yeah.
What do you do to make it soft? You soak it in water, room temperature water, makes it soft. Which is going to make it easier to eat. Because if you try to eat that thing hard, you may break a molar. So basically, I look at the room temperature water. It's going to keep your body warmer, more warm, hotter, I guess you could say. Instead of drinking cold water, you drink water filled with ice, your body temperature could go down. I'm not an expert, so don't take my advice on this. But I could be an expert if I studied a little bit more.
That's true.
But so that's what it is. I'm trying to stop injuries. I'm trying to make it so you can go to 0 to 60 quicker with less injuries. And that's my one big way of trying to grow jiu-jitsu throughout the world.
Wow. It's all done with softening that roll with some warm water.
Just soften that roll, Byron.
I love it. I'm excited for this book to come out, Gary. This will be a great learning experience for everybody.
Yeah, and what a better time for this to come out than right before St. Paddy's Day. That's what we're looking at, and you can buy these gifts for people on St. Paddy's Day. So, what a better time for it to come out. So definitely check it out. St. Paddy's Day 2018.
The good thing is somebody is listening to this right before St. Patrick's Day. It's just not the majority of the people that are downloading it. Probably listen to it within a week or two. But there are people who are listening to this right before that, Gary. So you've got everybody covered.
Yeah, that's my game. Just like on the mat, I'm trying to cover everybody.
Yep. And if you want to get covered by Gary on the mat and you happen to be traveling through Wichita, Kansas, hit us up at bjjbrick@gmail.com or on our Facebook fan page. Like that and send us a message, and we'll find a time to train with you, and Gary will cover you on the mat.
Definitely, I'll cover you on the mat.
Gary,
and speaking of that...
we're going to have a drought of people getting a hold of us for that.
Hey, make sure you tell your friends about this podcast. We really appreciate it. It's neat when we hear from one of our listeners who said, hey, so-and-so who listens to your podcast every week told me about it, and I really enjoy it, and I'm going to pass it down to some of my friends. So definitely let them know. And also check out BJJ Brick on social media. We're not only on Facebook, where most of you guys know us. Check out our YouTube page. We got an awesome YouTube page, a lot of videos on there. Check it out. Some serious, some funny. But we got the whole shebang. Bada bing, bada boom. So definitely check that out. And we're also on Reddit and a couple other social Twitter too. So definitely check us out.
Yep. Hey, Gary, just for fun, I'm going to play a little clip from our YouTube page from the BJJ Brick Q&A session. We've got about 20 of these up, and I think it'd be fun to kind of introduce that to the podcast audience. If you haven't gone by and checked out the YouTube page, this will give you a little sample of what's over there. So here you go.
I'll tell you, well, before we start it here, I will tell you that a lot of times when you send in a question to either bjjbrick@gmail.com or on the Facebook page, Byron, instead of answering it like most people would do with just an email back to you, Byron makes a lot of times we'll make a video and post it on the YouTube page. So if you want to actually see a cool way to answer your question, send a message to bjjbrick@gmail.com. Keep your fingers crossed, and maybe Byron will turn it into a question and answer on YouTube.
Absolutely. So here goes a sample of that.
Hi, my name is Byron, and welcome to BJJ Brick Q&A. Today, we have a question about being passive on the mats. If you have a question for BJJ Brick Q&A, send it to bjjbrick@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to answer your question and hopefully help you out in a format just like this. Let's get to the question. I am in my 3rd month of training. I am 38 years old, and most of the guys in my school are in their 20s. They have high energy, they're fit, they move quickly. I just don't seem to have the intense killer instinct to win a roll. I'm a very passive personality, very submissive. I was never into sports. I recognize Jiu Jitsu as an effective for self-defense that I may need one day, and I'm sure that if I need it, I could operate at 110% in an emergency. But in a roll, I just don't seem to have the intensity that I see in others. Do you think that it's something that I could develop over time, or something that can be taught? Gordon, thank you for the question, and it's something that's an interesting question. Is somebody just naturally passive and it can't be changed on the mats? I don't know. I think in time you could become more aggressive and more assertive on the mats as you gain more and more confidence on the mats and you learn more jiu-jitsu. I think this is something you could do. Now you're 38, you're 1 year older than me, and you're in a room full of a bunch of studs, a bunch of 20-year-olds who are just on the mat. They don't get tired. They're physically very fit, and that's a tough room to be in sometimes. Do I think you're too passive? I would say probably not. I think that in your situation, instead of focusing on how to become more aggressive and how to have that killer instinct, focus on learning jiu-jitsu, and you'll be better off in the long run. Jiu-jitsu is a skill-based martial art, sport, self-defense system. It's not necessarily an aggression-based system. So as you pick up these skills and as you learn things, it should become easier and easier for you. That being said, these younger guys are also picking up skills and learning things as well, but they're going at it a different way than you are. Let's take the example of tennis. I am definitely not a tennis expert. I don't follow tennis, but I think this will be an example that everyone can understand. Let's just say you have two people like me trying to learn tennis. Both of us have really no idea what's going on. We go out there every day, we hit the ball as hard as we can, we understand the basic rules, but we're just trying to have good serves that are aces, and anytime I get a chance to hit that ball hard, I just smash it. I'll probably learn a little bit about tennis. And to somebody who is a bit slower than me, a bit weaker than me, and training about the same amount of time, I might give them a good run for their money, and I might just wear them out and beat them. Granted, I'm in my 20s and not 37 right now. So that is one way to learn tennis. Get a buddy and just play hard all the time. Now let's take another way to learn tennis. You get somebody who's very good. Let's just say Serena Williams. I'm sure you're aware of Serena Williams. One of the world's best tennis players. Now, if I were to play against her and she were just to smash the ball and just play as hard as she possibly can, I don't think I would learn anything. I would fail to return one ball. So that's not what I want to do either. So playing against the real aggressive guys all the time, I probably wouldn't learn a whole lot. Maybe a little defense. Playing against somebody who's very good, who's just trying to smash the ball and try to beat me, also not real helpful. I'm not even close to that level of play to where, yeah, it's great to train with somebody that's that good, but if they're going to be that way and try to win every match and not let me score a single point, I'm not going to learn anything. It's just too far out of my ability. Now let's say I'm playing tennis with Serena Williams and she's actually trying to help me learn how to play tennis. What's this going to look like? Is this going to look like the way it did before, while she's smashing the ball and just trying to score all the points she can right away and end this match as quick as possible? No. She's going to be returning or hitting balls to me that I could return. Maybe not all of them, but many of the balls that she'll be hitting to me, I can send back and I can learn from something. She'll be coaching me and telling me how to do proper form and swing and where my feet should be and all these things I don't even know about tennis to start with to talk about. But there's a lot of learning going on. But if I'm going to get Serena Williams to serve balls to me and I'm just going to try to hit them as hard as I can, she's going to tell me to slow down and to do it correctly. She's backed down her game a little bit. I need to back down my game and learn the proper technique and form. Same thing in Jiu-Jitsu. If you're alone with the upper belt, I think the odds are they're not just going to smash you. You're getting these really hard rules from the lower belts because they're in that phase of the two young tennis players who just go out there and hit the ball very hard. You can learn Jiu-Jitsu from those guys, absolutely. But if you could find a couple of more advanced grapplers to help you out and give you a little bit slower rolls and actually tell you what you're doing wrong and coach you a little bit, you're going to learn a lot more. And that's where you're going to really excel. You may not rise to the elite level of competitive, two lions going at it, Jiu-Jitsu that you think, but you could easily rise to a very technical grappler that has learned from some of the best in the gym that you're at and become very good at Jiu-Jitsu. And, with your ability to stay calm, which is something that a lot of these younger guys have a hard time doing, you can really learn a lot of Jiu-Jitsu under pressure. I think this is a great opportunity where you see as you're being passive as a negative, it can become one of your strengths. Sure, you're 3 months in, and I'm sure, Gordon, you're working on a lot of defense. And defense isn't always the funnest thing to do. It's funner to try to get that submission and finish somebody. But your first several months, 6 months even, you're going to be learning escapes and defense, and there are going to be techniques you're going to do the entire time you're on the mat. I'm still doing the same escapes I've been doing since I was 3 months into Jiu-Jitsu. A lot of them are the same. So just take your time. Don't worry about comparing yourself to other people on the mat, and just take this opportunity to learn your Jiu-Jitsu. I'm sure that this path you're taking, the patient one, the drive to learn opposed to just win, is a great long-term path to doing great at Jiu-Jitsu. Gordon, thanks for the question. If you have a question for the BJJ Brick Q&A, send it to bjbrick@gmail.com. Thanks. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel to watch more videos just like this.
All right. Next week, my friends, we have Espen Matheson on the BJJ Brick podcast. Espen, he's a young grappler, just 22 years old. He's from Norway, one of the top competitors in Europe, and it's really cool to catch up with him and learn what he's doing as far as training there and really his goals in the future. So definitely a name. If you haven't heard it yet, you'll be hearing it in the future, and it was fun to learn from him.
Definitely do not miss next week, guys.
Yeah, we cover lots of different topics about training in small gyms, diet, training philosophies, lots of different stuff, book recommendations. We're all over the place on this interview. It's a lot of fun next week. Gary, I know you're over there not cooling off, drinking cold water, so I want you to stay sweaty, my friend.
And don't forget to drink room temperature water.
But make sure it's water.
Make sure you smell it first.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.